Hello there. Well,
Hello.
thank you for joining. Everyone in the chat, thank you for joining. It's fantastic to have you all here. Another Thursday evening chat. And today it is Sandeep Pawar, who has a fantastic Power BI related. The first time I saw Twitter, it was like Power BI. That is awesome. I love it. So do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do.
Yeah,
That'll get the ball rolling.
yeah. So I'm Sandeep, aka Pawar BI, as they call me. But yeah, so I am a data analytics person, as you can call me. I currently work at Humana in the US. It's an insurance company. I work as a senior data visualization engineer. And Yeah, I mean, I got into data analytics about 5 6 years ago. My background is in mechanical engineering. I did my master's in mechanical engineering. I was a researcher doing computational modeling and stuff, computational fluid dynamics, heat transfer, thermodynamics. So always worked with data, so which means working with lots of lab data, experimental data, a lot of computational data, um, and using statistics on it. And about I was going to be I wanted to be an engineering manager, so I got into engineering management to do my second master's in engineering management, and got interested into data analytics.
Very
So
cool.
here I am. Yeah. So yeah.
So, a mechanical engineer who got into analytics. I like it very much. You are very, very qualified for lots of different things. My God, this is an impressive array of things that you just mentioned there. And I'm interested, you said that your, what did you say your job title was? Your senior
So I'm
visualization
a senior
engineer.
data visualization engineer.
Okay.
Quite a mouthful. Now, the title itself might suggest that I only do data visualization, which is, I guess, a part of the job,
Mm,
but it includes anything and everything that relates to data.
yeah.
So, which means working on the data models, working on data governance projects,
Mm,
working with business leaders on anything that's related to data, machine learning, statistics,
yeah.
anything that's related to data. So, title doesn't really.
The reason I mention that is because I've seen a few conversations every now and then about job titles for people who work in business intelligence or
Hmm.
data visualization, and it's
Yeah,
like what are we? Are you developers? It's like no, developers. Is that a correct word? And then your job title is interesting because it does cover. I mean, a visualization engineer sounds quite cool, but you're quite right. It can also be okay. Is it just visualization? And how do you visualize? How do you engineer visualization? But the fact,
yeah,
I mean, of course, it goes so much deeper than that. It's interesting. Like this, it seems to be that isn't like an industry agreed upon terminology for business intelligence. You know?
no, and that really bugs me
Mm,
in a lot of ways because right now you have like a separation of business analytics, data analyst, data visualization engineer, and then you
mm,
have a data scientist, and now you have a machine learning engineer, a
mm-hmm,
data engineer, a data architect, and all these people with they have different expertise
mm,
that do all these different things just to create a business solution. And when I talk to somebody, they say, okay, who are you? A data visualization engineer. And the first thing that comes to their mind is maybe like using D3, right? Or using Java or something
mm, mm.
to create all these cool different data visualizations, which I don't really do. I would
Yeah.
like to. The most I can do is Deneb, using Deneb. But anything more than that, I don't really delve into that
Yeah.
much. But I wish, to your point, it really bugs me that we have all these different titles
Mm,
to a large extent because in my own work, I use statistics, I use machine learning, I use data analytics, which means anything that requires you to solve a business challenge using data, you should
mm,
be able to do that, right?
yeah.
And um, but, yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's it might not be the most important thing if you talk about job titles and stuff, but it is a. I think sometimes it does matter more than more than we like to admit. It might
Yeah.
just be a perception of a role, but I, of course, really enjoy the visualization part. I mean, we can talk about Deneb for 45 minutes, so we can do a double session all about Deneb if you want. This is fine by me. But people like to kind of be understood on what they do, you know. So it's like, okay, are you just, you know, are you the person who takes all the data from the team and puts pretty pictures on top of it?
Mhm.
But you're right, when it comes to, I mean, there's a large amount of things that you mentioned that I don't get involved in, but still, like, being involved with ETLs and taking data from different sources and cleaning and all feeding data into data warehouses. This is something that really doesn't seem to be covered by what people think about when they think of Power BI. And certainly when I first
Yeah.
started using the tool, I was thinking, okay, I am literally going to take data and visualize it and make it look cool. And the further you get, it becomes deeper and more complex.
Yeah.
But
I mean, with respect to Power BI, I think data visualization is probably one of the last thing that comes to mind when you talk about Power BI. To be honest, it's mostly about
it
DAX
depends who
or
you
data
ask, though.
modeling.
If you speak to someone who just sees, if who just like reads reports, they
Yeah.
have the concept is just like, for example, if someone in 2017, early 2017, if someone asked you the question, "What is Power BI?" it would be a much easier question to answer than it is now because of
Oh
all,
yeah, for sure.
you
It's like
know.
ton of things from different ton of people. I think I just read it like yesterday, or who was it? Oh, I think it was Jeff. He
Mm,
was talking about some podcast where you can really see that you can have one person that's dedicated to working on one aspect of Power BI, right? You might
mm,
have a data modeler, you might have a DAX expert, you might have a person who creates data visualizations, and one person who's really interested in maybe monitoring the capacities and things like that.
mm,
So in that regard, I think Power BI is really interesting too. You have
yeah,
so many things going on, and you have to wear so many different hats. And yeah.
yeah. I really appreciate it because they were, I mean, the first few that I saw were Power Query and Deneb. And I'm like, all right, okay, this is the sort of stuff that I can get involved with. I like this a lot. So there seems to be, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, please, in fact, correct me if I'm wrong at length. But this is kind of a lot of your focus. This is what you enjoy with the transformation, the Power Query, the M type of thing. That's more your area, or you're more comfortable doing.
I enjoy that part. I mostly enjoy the advanced analytics part, so which means blending uh, Power BI
Mm.
and machine learning
Okay.
and statistics. So those aspects a lot more, because it might just be me, but what happens is when I start using Power BI, so my ultimate result that I give to my business users is in Power BI. But as soon as I open Power BI, um, I kind of get blindsided by, okay, I need to get my data model ready. I need to create my
Mm.
DAX. I need to think about accessibility. I need to do this, that. That I kind of not think about the data exploration part and the data advanced data analytics part of it.
Mm.
So I use a lot of Python in my work.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, and then I use machine learning and data science to understand the data a lot more. I enjoy
Okay.
that part a lot, and it's kind of fun. So,
Yeah. Sounds cool. Python, I've got no idea. I every time someone mentions Python, I kind of laugh a bit to myself, but also I cringe at the same time because it got this really, really strong memory of one of my most embarrassing interview moments of all time. And I've just been learning a bit about Python. I mean a bit, I mean like a tiny bit.
mhm.
And I was gonna I forget, it was a long time ago. I was gonna mention it in an interview, we're gonna bring it up, and someone asked me a question and I wanted to say it. And I was a bit nervous. It was an interview.
Mhm.
Didn't feel too comfortable. I hadn't really done many interviews with technical stuff back then. And instead of saying Python, I just said snake. And I was like, it was like some kind of game on a Nokia phone or something, I was mortified. And there's no coming back from that. Truly, there's no way you can come back from that. Just kind of, yeah, I'm just gonna leave now because I
Yeah,
can't.
and Python has that. So you have in Python, you have Python. There is koalas, the
Mm.
Python library. There is pandas, of course.
Yeah, the pandas
So,
is very
yeah,
good.
so I
Yeah,
don't blame you. One of
yeah.
those animals.
Just something from the animal kingdom somehow. That's what I was talking about. Oh man, yeah, it was pretty bad. Machine learning though, this is pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. Does it upset you when people get confused between machine learning and AI? Because this is a fantastic thing to do. I love when people say AI when the machine is talking about machine learning. It's always good fun. What did I get the job? I didn't. Sorry, going back. I did not get the job. Um,
We could
I
have guessed
think I
that.
don't know what the opposite of not getting the job is. No, no, that's getting the job. But I very didn't get the job is what I'm trying to say. It was just terrible. It really
You
was.
were blacklisted from
Yeah,
ever interviewing.
that's maybe I'm surprised I got any other job ever after that moment. So it's like it's one of those learning things where you kind of learn to stay in your area. Do you know what I mean? It's like just because you've done like a 2-hour course in it doesn't mean you have to talk about it. It's like
Yeah,
wait until you can be more fluent about it. And
yeah,
actually, that day never came. So
yeah.
this is why I mentioned Python, aka Snake, for the rest of my professional career thus far. Good time. Uh, yeah.
Yep, yep.
But machine learning. So how do you get involved in that? Go a bit of tell me
Um,
what's involved.
so, like I said, my background was in computational modeling. So, always
Mm,
use statistics. I used to use JUMP, if you're familiar with that. It's a statistical package by SAS.
okay.
Um, and back when I used to do research, uh, use a lot of regression techniques,
Mm,
even the neural network techniques, which at that point it wasn't even called machine learning.
okay.
Um, and then I helped in my company, being a mechanical engineer and having some statistical background. I helped in our production team as well on some of the statistical process control aspects of things.
Mm,
So I've always had that background. And the way I got into data analytics was really because I overheard somebody in my company that they had some warranty issues, and I was like, okay, and it different domain from what I'm trying to do, but same application. The
mm,
methods and methodologies would be exactly the same. It was about applying some statistics to figure out if the products are within tolerance limits or not. Um, so I did that, and I found that very interesting, and that's how I got started into data analytics. Back then, it was Power View. Power BI, I think, wasn't there. It was Power View.
yeah.
So I showed it in Power View, uh, and it kind of picked on from there. And uh, I did not have that database or data background really
Mm,
that typically have that SQL server. I don't know what is a SQL server and how do you do these SQL things and all that kind of. So I had to learn that. But what I had was that statistical background. So whenever I worked on a project, I always
mm,
thought about, okay, how do you look at variations, variability, uncertainties, and go beyond just the aggregations and the averages and the means and things like that. And even to my projects right now that I work on, I try to blend the two together. So it
mm,
may not be completely predictive. So when you think about or somebody talks about AI or machine learning, you kind of think about churn modeling that, hey, is this customer going to buy something or not? Or is this going to be a fraud or not? But one layer below that is things like understanding patterns in your data,
okay.
um, understanding are there any different segments within your data. You have ton of data,
Mm,
so are there things that are structural to the data? So a good example would be a forecast. If you do a
mhm,
forecast in Power BI, for example, or in Excel, you create that forecast line, right? But going beyond that, if you create that forecast, what are the uncertainties in those forecasts? Can your business users really rely on those?
yeah.
And things of that kind that really interest me. And Alex, in fact, Alex Powers, he once mentioned to me that, hey, you everybody is trying to go from a BI to AI. You're probably the only person who is going from AI to BI.
Yeah, that's
um,
interesting. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's yeah. I mean, this is a point I was going to make as well. It's a transition that I don't think I've heard before,
yeah,
AI to BI, and it's a. I mean, obviously, I have no context from what I'm about to say, but I would, if you talk about like mechanical engineering, someone who's working with machine learning and then AI, switching over to BI, where you kind of, as you mentioned, you're starting from an area where you didn't know some of the things that you then had to learn. It's an interesting decision to take. It's an interesting step. Did it feel like you was like starting from, well, not zero, but starting from,
yeah.
I don't know, like 50 from 100, if you will.
Yeah, it was kind of like that, but initially it was more like Power BI. With Power BI, the learning curve is like you go from 0 to 60, like within a matter of few days, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, that's when it really takes a lot of time and effort to learn it and really master it and be an expert at it. So I was on that curve, and I think the really this the what really helped me was, I think it was 2018 or 2019. I was at a Power BI conference in Chicago, and Alex was also there, and a lot of
Okay.
other folks from Power BI community were there who I didn't know at that time, but now we know from Twitter and all social media. A lot of folks were there, and it was an eye opener for me that, hey, Power BI is like really beyond all of these different things. And Alex introduced me to M and Power Query, and he's been my cheerleader since then. um, yeah, but yes, and so it was that helped me a lot, and
Okay.
obviously Power BI community has been
Yeah. I mean,
great help.
I think most people have been in some way helped by the Power BI community. I just want to bring attention to one comment.
Mhm.
This back then, Power Query was called Get and Transform.
Transform.
Is that I did not know that. I've never
Oh
encountered
yeah,
this.
it
I
was
knew
it
you
was Get and Transform. Yeah.
Get and Transform. This is a ridiculous name. And of course, I know like Power View, and I've never don't think I've ever had a conversation about the old names for Power Query. I never knew that, and it's interesting because one of these random things that frustrates me is that I think still now in Microsoft, you go to the Microsoft Store. If you
Uh-huh.
want to install an app, it's not install, it's not download, it's get.
Get. Yeah.
Why get?
What?
I drives me nuts. So the fact that Power Query used to be called Get and Transform is cool, funny,
Yeah.
and makes sense that there's some strange focus within Microsoft on the word get. There must be
Yeah.
some logic behind it, but
It
like,
must be. Yeah. Some. Yeah.
how often do you install something on your on any device and say, I want to click on get?
Yeah.
I know this is
Well,
a really small thing, but it's one of these things that I just look at it and think, why does this exist? Get and
and I'm sure
transform.
they will point to some sort of an A/B test, right? That they do. That if you do a get, maybe there you get a slight 0.5% increase in installation, and that's where those fudgy things, the data science part comes in. We did it with data science. We did it with
Yeah.
AI.
It's too intelligent for the likes of me. I can't understand that thing. This is a good point. It's a good thing it's not called Git ban. True. I have my issues with
Yes. Yeah.
Git.
Yeah.
My lord. They're pretty special stuff. So yeah, sorry, back to you. I'm me going off on a random tangent about the word get there. This is the way it goes on these sort of chats. Have you ever, because I was reading your blog and more personal stuff about you, well, not very personal stuff, but about you as a person rather than your
Mhm.
professional side. Sports, cricket. You're a cricket fan,
Oh yes, big time.
and I don't think I've maybe had a cricket fan on before, but never talked about it really. I'm English. I
Mhm.
like a bit of cricket myself. I'm not some. So I work with a guy who is basically a cricket encyclopedia, and he can just like rattle off the stats. But the thing is, I love working with sports data. Like connecting the sources. And cricket is basically just a game full of stats. I mean, there
Oh
was
yes, yeah.
so many. Have you ever thought about going that direction? And
I have, yeah, I have, and just like even anybody else, I have a ton of side projects that I have always wanted to
hmm,
work on, but you never get to. it's one of those things.
Yeah,
I started quite a few things on it, but never really got into anything. But that would be really awesome.
it would be very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was born and brought up in India, so that's why
Okay.
cricket. I came to US in 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, so haven't really had much, obviously, any opportunity to watch cricket since then. But I've always followed cricket.
Mm.
Sachin Tendulkar. I'm a huge fan of him. And maybe other than two of us, I don't know if anybody else knows him.
One or two, I'm
Anybody
sure there's a
from
couple.
India is
There's
here,
Aussies
obviously.
in here, maybe a couple from New Zealand, that kind of
Yeah,
in this
yeah,
direction as
yeah,
well, maybe.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I used to hate cricket as a kid.
Really.
I don't know why. There's something I would go at the matches, and obviously, as they were quite long,
Mhm.
and it just drives me crazy. And my brother loved it. And then back in the 90s, I used to really enjoy, really just annoying my brother by saying that Mike Atherton was garbage. My brother was loved Mike Atherton. I'm not sure what it's about, and I just kept saying all the time that now he's rubbish. Which that's my first memories of cricket, and I didn't really get into it until I was like probably actually. I can tell you when I really started enjoying, and I think a lot of English people my age could say the same. There uh, was probably round about I can't remember the year. I really can't. Probably around about 2007-ish, maybe, when there was a series, England, probably Australia, and anyway, forget the series. It was a long time ago. I was in my early 20s, and I was really hungover, and me and my friend a couple of friends went to spend all day like watching sport in this bar and kind of recovering from our hangovers. And we watched football on one screen and cricket on another screen. And it was so cool. It was just an amazing day. And from that moment on, cricket.
Yep.
This was, and then when I went to Australia, I managed to get tickets for the Boxing Day test, the
Yeah.
Ashes,
Yeah.
and we bowled out Australia for like 97 or something. Good
Oh,
times.
cool.
Yes, good times. But you know what? I think if we talk about cricket too much, we're going to lose the audience because most people are like, what is
Yeah, we might need another session for that.
it's such a niche sport. Um, but going
Well,
back to my
here, I mean, in India, obviously, or in the subcontinent, not so much, right? It's
yes,
life over there.
when I say niche sport, that's probably badly put. I mean, there are so many countries who don't play it, but the countries who do play it love it. And the ones who don't play it are just like are so clueless about what the hell's going on. It's really strange to have to explain that sort of thing. My wife's Italian, and she didn't even she'd never really also heard of snooker, which I found interesting. I didn't know what was going on there. What's second? And also this, by the way, right in front of me. There you go. Ex-colleague of mine. Yes, Power BI and fantasy football in the office. This is a big passion of mine. I
Yeah.
still have a fantasy football report that I use to play with my terrible fantasy football team. I'm very bad at fantasy football because I'm far too focused on getting the data and creating a report than actually
Yeah.
improving my team. And that's when I pull all the data from the API. And some before in the chat said when we're talking about get and all that sort of stuff that perhaps someone from the API team had too much influence on the naming.
There you go.
That's actually a
Maybe
good point.
that's
I
why.
never thought
Yeah.
about that, James. That is a really, really good point. So
Good point.
perhaps it's all about the API, and that's where the get comes from. Yeah. Anyway, circling back from cricket to something more related to to Power BI. Sorry about that. And let's go over a bit of Deneb because I'm curious about that.
Mhm.
I'm really enjoying the growing Deneb community within the Power BI. How did you first stumble across that? I'm curious.
So actually, I used Deneb slightly differently, and I've
Mm,
blogged and done a couple of videos on that too. So when I'm using Python, I use Altair. It's a visualization library in
mm,
Python, which is based on Vega Lite.
okay.
And when I'm doing my exploratory data analysis, I create these visuals that I
Mm,
have in mind. okay, this is how I want to look at it. And the cool thing about Deneb is that once I create it in Python there, I can just generate the Vega script from there, the JSON script from there,
That's
and
cool.
then import that into Deneb and then make
Mm.
some changes. You do have to make some changes because there are some compatibility issues and things like that.
All right.
But so I can use that over there, and it's been awesome. I mean, it really.
Am I frozen? No, you're frozen. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Are you still there? Someone's frozen. I wanted to keep talking. What were we talking about? We were talking about Deneb. And yes, so basically from my side, I had not heard of Deneb. I don't think when I did my first chat, which is I did it with Kerry Kolosko. I probably had heard of Deneb a little bit. You can see him. He's yeah, very likely. It's okay. We've dealt with these situations before. I'm going to switch him off and back on again. See if that helps. No, it's not going to help. We'll see. I'll open my Twitter. Maybe he'll message me. Sandy. Maybe that is always a possibility in my house. When my son was waking up before, but no, I think he's gone completely now. So I want to keep talking about Deneb a little bit, because I was saying that I had not heard of Deneb, or maybe I had, I can't remember, but very, very little, and that was back in October. So that was when I first got into Deneb, and since then, basically, it's all I've focused on within Power BI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, does anyone want to join me for a few minutes just in case Sandeep can't come back? If you do, let me know. I'll send you a quick link, and then we can get going. This should be fine. I love when this sort of thing happens. Trying to think and act on my toes. Yes, you go, Daniel. You're going to help me out here. I was talking about Deneb anyway. Always send him a link on Twitter. Get DMs, mate. And maybe someone will be joining me again in a few minutes. And that would be fantastic, because I'm not going to sit here on my own. Oh, wait. 1 second. Is Sandeep back again? I'm not sure. His name's there, but he's going off and on again. Daniel just joined anyway. That would be awesome. And yeah, put a t-shirt on, and we'll start talking about something. Maybe cricket if you want. I'm not sure. 1 second, see if I can get Sandeep back there again. Sandeep, are you there, mate? Sandeep's there. Albert can't hear you, though. I can't hear you anyway. Can someone? Hello? 1 second. There you go. Hey, Daniel, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. I guess you don't need me now.
I can't hear Sandeep, though. I can't anyway.
No, I can't hear him either. But I'll be very happy if he becomes hearable to just skulk away.
That's no. I remember we've done this before. You want to go-to backups. I'm going to take him off the screen because okay. Otherwise, it would get strange.
It's
Anyway,
been harder to get out of bed because the time difference now. So this is a rare morning where I drag myself out of bed. I was quite excited to see Sandeep.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
I have been enjoying it.
When these things happen, I'm going to make a list of the people who I can just invite back on to get the time back. It happened with Megan a few weeks ago, and you were kind enough to jump in there as well. You got new background. It looks awesome, by the way.
Oh, thank you. These are some Nanoleaf lights I've been meaning to put up for a while, and a bookshelf that I built for fun.
Wow, I'm very impressed. Anyway,
some acacia that I found.
Some what, sorry?
Some acacia type of wood.
Ah, okay. Oh man, I've just revealed my ignorance about woodwork. But so embarrassing. Wait, we were talking about Deneb, so we can keep doing that now if it's okay. I had a question for you actually. I was going to ask you about. I'm going to send you a private message about this. Maybe you can just clarify it over a live stream if that's okay.
Let's do it public message.
Yeah, why not? Talking about, so if someone had a question about the limitations of Deneb, and I remember you did a stream once and you were talking about the number of data points and the maximum number of data points. Is there a restriction there or not? Because I really couldn't remember.
Yeah, so custom visuals have got they've got a default cap of 1,000 rows if we don't specify anything. We can go up to 30,000.
Okay.
Deneb's a bit of a tricky one because you can, with a bit of effort, write code to pull more rows from the data set, but it's expensive because it gets pushed back to Power BI. So with Deneb, we put a 10,000 row limit by default on visuals.
Okay.
But there's a menu. It's on the documentation site. There's a menu that allows you to, there's a property in there that says remove data limit. So what it'll then do is, if you've got more than 10,000 rows, it will try and load more rows from the model in batches of 10,000.
Okay.
You've got to think though, that's limited by what Power BI decides to give you anyway. So and it's not very performant because if you've got a really, really tall fact table, the DAX that Power BI uses, it uses a whole bunch of top ends and changes the window. So it can be quite a lengthy job to get that data into the visual. Once it gets in, Vega's really fast at rendering tens of thousands of rows, no problem. The other thing you got to think about is if you've got a mark for each one of those data points, it's like having visuals on a page. The more you add, the slower things get.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act. So there's things we do in Deneb as well, where you can change the renderer from SVG to canvas, which is like an image.
That's a good one, yeah.
But you still get the interactivity, which is one of the really cool things about Vega. Big difference between R and Python and the Vega languages is their canvas renderer. It's a bit fuzzier. It doesn't scale like SVG does.
Yeah.
But it's really, really you get most of the functionality just at a better performance. Okay, so there are things we do to try and offset that, but it's generally one of those things we don't advise, just because it's Power BI is not great at, it's an aggregation tool. When you want to aggregate tens of thousands of rows, it's not really aggregation at that point.
Yeah. Okay.
Or it is. It's just really poor performing aggregation.
Understand. I feel really bad actually, because you just jumped in to help me out, and I could have just given you like a really nice like softball question, but I went straight in there with a proper like, explain this from your documentation. Sorry about that, mate.
I like to think I'm enough of a nerd about the whole thing to be able to answer most questions. It's just whether the people hearing the answers are interested in that kind of stuff.
Well, if they're not, they're in the wrong place, let's face it, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah, of course. Also, here's a question from Jeff. I'm gonna throw up regarding the cross filtering in Deneb. What is the latest
on cross filtering?
Yeah, so basically, what's the latest?
It's all documented on the site, but essentially, so the easy thing to do is, as long as your data correlates one-to-one. So think about your data as a table. Visualize your data as a table visual first. Understand what the cross filtering is like with a table, and that's how you have to start thinking with Deneb. So what we do is, if you keep your data at the same grain, plot a mark on the canvas, Deneb assigns a state to that row internally that you don't have to worry about. This is the kind of stuff that if you write a custom visual yourself, you have to manage in your code. So we try to do that. So if you click on a mark, it toggles a state, and then you can use the Vega languages to inspect that state and then encode the mark to show whether it's selected or not, if that makes sense. It's quite hard to visualize in the current versions, and in 1.3 we're going to be putting in some extra stuff to help you with that. And I'm just about finishing off the dev builds of 1.3, so I got up early to write the documentation. I'm still writing the documentation. I'll probably be on that for most of today and Monday, and then hopefully the alpha builds will be out, so people can start kind of doing early access testing and playing with the new features, I'm hoping. But they'll be, to sort of expand on that more, if you've used the Vega editor lets you inspect the data streams in the visual. So we'll have that in Deneb. So you'll be able to look at your visual data set plus all the extra fields we add for cross-highlighting and cross-filtering. So you can actually see what their state is without doing debugging through tooltips and stuff, which is what you had to do previously. But it is really, if you want to understand cross-filtering, we've tried to make it as easy as we can. But the reality is that interactivity it's a great feature of Power BI, but it takes a lot of effort to develop.
Yeah, sure.
So we're trying to bridge the gap, much like we are with the, building the visuals. You have to understand a little bit more about how visuals go together. Interactivity's got the same cost, probably a little bit more. So, cross highlighting is a good example where you're actually building two visuals in one, because you have to write a visual for the original data points and one for the highlighted data points.
Mm.
And then you have to think, what should that look like for my readers? So
Yeah.
there's lots of stuff you got to think about with cross filtering, not just whether it's on or off, but how do I show my readers that point is selected?
Yeah. Wow. Also, I should also say now that you've gotten up to do the documentation, and now I'm distracting you, taking away from documentation from. I'm so conflicted right now.
I wasn't putting a lot of effort in because I was watching this at the same time. So you probably don't want documentation that's written with half my attention span.
That's
But I'll
probably
get back on it after this. I have a meeting with a client after this, and then I'll be back on the documentation.
That sounds like the normal standard of my documentation, to be quite honest. Yeah, true. Yeah, Glenn was there last night. I was doing a dinner presentation for the Newcastle user group, and so there you go. Glenn's getting 2 nights of dinner. Wow, dinner.
That's awesome.
I spoke to one of my colleagues today, and she told me that she used a dinner visualization for the first time yesterday. So I was very happy. My persistence.
It's so exciting to just hear that more than me, people more than me are using it. Because I kind of build it to help me build visuals faster. And then Kerry kind of gave me a nudge and said, I really like that. Kerry Kolosko.
Yeah.
She gave me a nudge and said, I would really like that, please. So that kind of spurred me on to build it a bit more. So I thought, well, at least I'll use it and Kerry will use it. And that's 2 people. So that's cool. And then it's gradually starting to gain some traction, which is really exciting. And I think it's a testament to the languages that the Vega teams have put together.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic work. The whole open source stuff is amazing. Hey, look, I just want to say, I think Sandeep is there again. I want to try and bring him.
I will yield the floor.
And let's see if it works.
There you go. Perfect. This is awesome.
You're back again, mate.
Hey,
how's it going?
Hey, Daniel.
Lovely to, we've talked a lot sort of by the medium of messaging and various other things. Lovely to kind of say hi face to face, as it were.
Yes, and while we have few minutes here, I do want to say that anybody who's listening here, and if you are using Deneb, be sure to support Daniel on GitHub or buy him a coffee, because we are standing, on the giant of the shoulder, the shoulder of this giant. The other way, but
we got it.
yeah. So please do support him. He's doing an awesome work, and it's really awesome that we have a community where we have people who are open sourcing their work, spending so much time and effort into building tools, which is awesome.
It's for me, one of the most amazing things is the fact that it is free to use and it's free to distribute across all of your reports, and that is a huge aspect of it. That it's not just that you can play with it and learn it, and then but you can then roll that out across reports through entire organizations, and that to me is massive, because I would never have thought that was going to be the case. So I don't want to make Daniel blush, but it is huge. Say it again, mate.
I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a developer, so I just like making stuff happen.
That's cool.
I can't think about how it's going to earn me any money or anything. That's just crazy. But no, it greatly reduces the time for me to build visuals, and that's a great time saver in itself.
Yeah. It made me tempted to look at learning Python and R, and I was like, okay, well, because I've mentioned before many times I have no coding background really, and I've kind of come into it, and everything I do is self-taught. And so, okay, so I can see connections here of how I could take this knowledge. So I had to start and had to look at it, and I was like, no, I can't do it. It's too much. I can't. So I'll stick to it. I'll stick with Vega Lite, and then when I get better, I can maybe try Vega. But that's probably as far as I'm going to develop with this. It's tough. It's tough. For sure.
Yeah. For my in my work, so I used to use Deneb for my personal projects and stuff like that. But then when it got certified, then started actually putting it into production and then using it in production and using across organizations and everything. So that was a huge step, I think, in the right direction for them. So.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Certification was hugely important to try and achieve, because a lot of people I work with just it's got to be certified. But at the same time, I kind of love the idea of just having a container that you could basically run any visual in that's certified, and Charticulate is now like that as well, which is really cool.
Yeah. Have you looked at Sandance? Did you see Sandance?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
pretty
built.
cool as well. Yeah,
That's built with Vega. It's really cool.
yeah,
Oh, really?
right.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I've
and
tried. I tried a bit of Charticulator. I've tried Sundance a lot. Did I try Sundance? I remember. I think I have, but I'm not sure.
It's beyond you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one saying I'll stick to my limitations. I always like to try and push and learn a bit more, but I think maybe I'm not ready right now. Maybe I'll stick with enhancing my knowledge in this area, but at some point perhaps. But right now, it's we'll
yeah,
get there.
Sundance is a great sort of exploratory interface. They do a really good job of just allowing you to explore your data in this really nice way. It's not a great way to explain it, but it's a really nice way. You just pull stuff around, shift it around, see how it changes. And they did a really short video. I don't know if it was linked in because they announced some changes coming in summer. Northern Hemisphere summer, and they did a very short video that just showed some analysis. It was quite smart how they were just moving stuff around so easily, and it's basically just a really nice way of driving Vega for that particular scenario. It's really nice.
Very cool. Very nice. Daniel, do you want to stay on, or do you want to hop off? It's your call, mate.
I would love to stay, but I think we'll let Sandeep come back. And I have, as I say, I have to get ready for a meeting, and I have to get working on getting the latest denim out as well. So
Nice
thank you so much,
chatting with you, Daniel.
Thank you
back,
so
Sandeep,
much.
and
I
will
really
keep this-
appreciate you letting me use you as my backup. It's very kind of you, mate.
If I'm awake, I'm happy. Well, awake and suitable for camera.
I'm going to get your mobile number, so if you're not there, I can just call you one day, set you alarm, say, wake up, I need your help.
Oh, lovely.
Fantastic, mate.
Thanks very much.
Take care.
See you,
Bye.
folks. Bye-bye.
Hey there, Sandeep. How
Hey.
you doing there?
Yeah, so lost electricity. I don't know. That happened once in a year, and it was today.
I think the first time it happened, it was me. The second time it happened, it was Megan. The third time it happened, it's when you have a live thing. I've learned that these things just happen, so it's all good, mate. All good. I forget what we're talking about when we stopped, but it doesn't matter. Move on to something else. I wanted to mention, because again, you mentioned that you have 4 patents.
Oh yeah.
That's
I
really
have
interesting
4.
to me. Can you talk about that a little bit, or is it like some kind of non-disclosure or
No,
whatever?
not at all. So this was back when I was a researcher. So I was doing mostly computational modeling on thermal analysis. So think of the LED bulbs that you use in your house or outside, and these LEDs, they produce a lot of heat, and you have to have some sort of a thermal management to dissipate that heat. And my job was to do research and design the heat sinks behind those. So a mechanical engineer would create the heat sink, but it was my job to run the analysis on it to figure out if it has the right amount of shape to it, material, and all the kind of stuff. So the patents are related to thermal management of the LEDs. So how to make them more efficient and lightweight and things like that.
That's amazing. I love how broad your range is. It's like, denim, Power Query. Oh yeah, I've also got like 4 patents related to light bulbs and heat management. This is fantastic. I mean, it really is quite. Are you ever tempted to kind of go back to your original area, or are you for now?
I still get contacted by recruiters and companies about that, and in fact, there was a point where I almost got a job offer from one of the biggest companies on earth. Something monetarily, it would have tripled my salary as well. But I was like, okay, no, I think data and data analysis is something I think I'm really good at, because the problem with the research part and the mechanical engineering was I was good at it, but it wasn't so much that I didn't feel the connection. Data analysis, I think it's something I can live, breathe, I can think about it. I think I'm good at it. So makes a whole lot of sense. So there's no point going back now. I'm far into the weeds.
Absolutely, yeah. If you like what you're doing, you're good at what you're doing. It's a nice thing to enjoy your job. Absolutely. And the thing is, data is really, really cool. I do love data. It's such an interesting thing that you can, I mean, I'm not sure how many people feel this way. Maybe I'm just like, you have to be a special sort of nerd. But to get a data set and to have to do things to it and explore it and learn to understand it, it's just very, very good fun, you know? And I would, if I didn't have that, I would definitely miss it. This is even the first time I looked at, I mean, of course, you can argue everything essentially is data, but looking at data sets and when I was a student, I worked in like a betting shop, you know, like in the bookies, and of course, there's a lot of statistics and a lot of numbers and a lot of percentages, and also even small stuff like the monthly balance sheets, which I know
Yeah,
it's really, really low tech. In
yeah,
fact, it was back then. It was very low tech. It was literally, you remember that carbon copy paper you write on one
yeah,
and it goes through.
sure.
Yeah, it was literally like that. But I used to love when I got to do the paperwork and make all the numbers add up. It was a fantastic thing. So I think sometimes you just have a connection with something, and for me, it's just data. So I can fully understand what you're saying. That it's the role that
You
you
know,
like.
and one interesting thing that I found with data was when I was a mechanical engineer doing all these research work, I was very focused on one aspect of the business. I'm a good collaborator, and when I went to school for engineering management, one of the things that I really loved, like one of the classes I took was about innovation and how collaboration drives innovation. And data is one of those things that really can do that, because when you are a data person, you are working with marketing folks, sales folks, you're working with operations, production, and a lot of different people
Yeah.
who, if you think about it as a network in your company,
Mm-hmm.
you are one of those people who are at, I wouldn't say necessarily the center of it, but you are one of the focal points of how all these folks are connected to each other. And you, as a person who has that vision, or into how all these people use data, the business decisions that they make, you can connect all of them together via data.
Mm.
uh, that, hey, if you're doing this, the sales are down because I see in my data, because I've worked with production, because they are facing a lot of warranty issues, and they don't these two folks, they don't necessarily talk to each other, or they're aware of the issues, but you, as somebody who is like that point in between all of this network that connects them, you can use your position to connect those points and then innovate in a sense that not necessarily create patents and things like that, but innovate in a sense that improve the business process,
Yeah.
make incremental changes. So even when I'm working on data analytics, I think the coolest thing for me is, I always say that I'm a very process focused data analytics person.
Yeah.
That I think a data analytics project is successful when you are able to drive business process changes in your company. If there is no process change in your company, I don't think it has gone far enough to do anything.
Yeah. Completely agree with that.
It's cool to say that sales is this much, but
Mm.
if somebody looks at it and doesn't do anything about the number has gone up or down,
Yeah.
did it matter what you did? It's not helpful. And that was one of the coolest thing about working with data, that I got to work with folks with different parts of the business, helping them understand what it is really showing.
Mm.
And the projects that where I have been helpful are the ones where the report is not necessarily the coolest or the sleekest looking, but the ones where I have had people talk to each other and then drive that discussion in the organization. Hey, is this right? Is this wrong? And things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's a good point. I can certainly identify with that last point because I have created reports that I personally, from a design perspective, hate them
Yeah,
to the extent that it frustrates me when people contact me and say, "Oh yeah, I love this report," and I'm like, "You shouldn't," because like I get it. The data is vitally important, and they use it on a daily basis, and it's really helping them. But for me, to open and look at it is just no fun. But as you say, that's not. It's a small part of what we do, but because I enjoy that last step, and because it's also it's a step you got to be careful with as well, because if you enjoy too much, you can spend far too long on it, like making
Oh,
these final tweaks and make it perfect, because that perfection doesn't exist, of course. But yes, it's
and
it's, it's,
the
it's a
thing
very
with
good point.
the thing with the business intelligence, I think, is the actual business intelligence part actually happens before you
Yeah,
start on the project and after you have finished the project. That's and a lot of folks don't think about that,
yeah.
spend way too much time on creating the report,
Mm.
but you know uh, but the real thing is, yeah, before and after, not during, when you're really doing it. So it's just fun.
Yeah, it's a good point. Never thought about it like quite in that way, but it's a very good point. Even though that you were gone for 10 minutes, I apologize. I'm gonna have to start
No, it's
saying the goodbye. I would love to have you back on, and we can
sure.
regain some of that time. As I said before,
Yeah.
I make a list of everyone who lost time due to
Maybe we should have one session like that. Everybody
yeah.
was lost time.
Exactly. We're gonna have either everyone together, or everyone gets like a 10-minute slot just to go through again. But it was an absolute pleasure. Really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
To
Thanks for having me. It was fun
Yeah, of course.
chatting with
Anytime
you.
would be great. If everyone in the chat, and of course, on this occasion, especially Daniel, who stepped in there, thank you very
Yes, thanks,
much for
Daniel.
all the questions, all the comments that keep us going. Really good fun. And obviously, back next Thursday. So hope to see many of you there. Sandeep, one more time, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Take
much.
care and enjoy the rest of your day, no matter what time it may be.
Thank
Goodbye,
you. And you have
everyone.
a great weekend ahead.